We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Those words were written by the Stoic philosopher Seneca nearly, music, 2,000 years ago. Yet, they describe the modern struggle of overthinking music perfectly. We replay conversations that already happened. We invent music catastrophes that haven't occurred. Weaponize ourselves with what-ifs, but overthinking isn't a personality trait. It's a habit. And like any music habit, it can be broken. Today, we're looking at 4 simple Stoic-inspired steps to silence the noise and music, reclaim your mental clarity. Chapter 1: The foundation of all Stoic practice. Music begins with the dichotomy of control. Overthinking is essentially the music mind's attempt to exert power over things that are inherently uncontrollable. When we obsess over a what if, we are wasting music, the most limited resource we have, our attention. Epictetus, music, who spent his early life in the chains of slavery, realized that true freedom is music internal. He taught that our only true domain consists of our own opinions, music, intentions, and actions. Everything else, the economy, what your partner thinks of you, or music, the mistakes you made 5 years ago, is indifferent. But why do we struggle with music? Because overthinking mimics the feeling of being productive. Your brain tells you that if you think about a problem long enough, you'll eventually find a safe outcome. But there is a sharp divide between active music planning and passive worrying. Planning is a tool. Worrying is a trap. Here's what music to do. Take a physical piece of paper and draw a circle. Inside the circle, write down the actions you can take in the next 5 minutes. Outside the circle, write down every outcome, every opinion, and every future music event that is bothering you. Once at ice and paper, look at the items outside the circle and say to yourself, "This is music, not my business." By defining these boundaries, you give your mind the permission it needs to stop processing data. Music cannot change. At Chapter 2, Marcus Aurelius, the leader of the Roman Empire, often spoke about stripping the things of the music world naked. He would look at expensive Falernian wine and remind himself it was just decayed grape juice music, or his purple imperial robes and see them as sheep's wool dyed with the blood off a shellfish. He did this to remove the emotional charge from things. Overthinking doesn't thrive on facts. It thrives on value judgments. We don't just observe a situation. We narrate it with terrifying music, dramatic adjectives. Practice objective representation. When you are overthinking a social interaction or a work mistake, strip every single music adjective away from the story you're telling yourself. The overthinking narrative says, "I made a catastrophic mistake, music, in that presentation. Now my boss thinks I'm auto-tell failure, and my career is in serious jeopardy." But the Stoic fact says, "I spoke for 10 minutes. I missed one slide. My boss is currently answering emails." Music, here's why this works. When you remove words like catastrophic, total, or jeopardy, you starve the overthinking fire of its fuel. You aren't being a positive thinker. You are being a rational thinker. When you stick to the bare facts, you realize that reality is rarely as loud as the voice in your head. Chapter 3: This is music, perhaps the most famous Stoic tool, the premeditation of evils. Snorts. Overthinking is usually driven by a vague, music, shadowy fear of the future. We keep mulling it over because we're trying to avoid a disaster we haven't fully defined. The Stoics did music the opposite. Instead of running from the worst-case scenario, they sat down and had a cup of coffee with it. Music, they realized that what we fear in the dark is often quite manageable in the light. Here's what to do. Set aside music 5 minutes to go all the way to the end of your worry. Ask yourself, if the worst-case scenario actually happens, what will I do? If you lose the job, you will update your resume and call a friend. If the person rejects you, you will go home, eat dinner, and continue your life. Most of what we overthink is music, not a death blow. It's merely an inconvenience. Once you have a plan for the worst-case scenario, the what-ifs music lose their power. You have replaced a vague anxiety with a concrete strategy. As Seneca said, "He who has learned to die has unlearned how to be a slave." In this context, you are no longer a slave to your fears. Chapter 4: Overthinking is a form of mental myopia. We get so zoomed in on our own lives that a minor embarrassment feels like the end of the world. The Stoics used a technique called the view from above to regain their perspective. Imagine your current problem. Now imagine yourself from the ceiling of your room. Music, then from the clouds above your city, then from the edge of the atmosphere looking down at the tiny blue marble Opharth spinning in an infinite silent void. When you feel a thought starting to spiral, take a music deep breath and perform this mental zoom out. Think of the billions music of people who lived before you and the billions who will come after. Think of the vastness of time and space. Here's why this works. This isn't about making your problems feel meaningless. It's about making them feel proportional. Most of the things we overthink today will not be remembered by anyone, music, including us, in 5 years. By adopting the view from music above, you detach yourself from the ego that is driving the overthinking, allowing you to return to the present moment with a sense of calm, music, and humility. Your mind is your most valuable piece of closing real estate. Don't let what-ifs live their rent-free. Every minute spent in a mental spiral, music is a minute stolen from the only life you actually have. Overthinking is a slow leak in your energy. It is an attempt to solve the future with a mind that belongs in the music present. As you go about your day, remember that while you can't control the chaos of the world, you own the fortress within. You own your judgment, your perspective, and your absolute right to choose your next thought. That is where your true power, music, lies. The path to tranquility isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about finding the stillness at its center. If this perspective helped you find a bit of clarity today, hit the like button. It helps the algorithm find others who are tired of the noise. Subscribe to join us as we continue to apply these ancient tools to the modern world, building a life of focus and integrity. Comment below. What is one thought you are choosing to let go of today? Let's discuss it and grow as a community. Until next time, keep your head clear and your soul steady.